A lot of the projects that come through the shop have huge amounts of sentimental value, and the sentimental value is what drives the project. A lot of times we talk with the customers and let them know that the labor to complete the project will surpass the value of the bike or the car. And when I know a customer's had a vehicle for 40 years of their life, the amount of love they have for it is deep. And we try to put the same amount of love into finishing that vehicle and making it what it should be. My name's Trevor Scales, and you're at Scales Studio. When we spend hundreds and sometimes thousands of hours working on something, we know that the customer is going to appreciate it on the other side. Behind me, I've got a Ducati 749, which is the ex-AMA road race bike. I've got another Ducati, which we're largely refabricating from scratch, including a carbon fiber gas tank. And then I've got a carbon fiber Subaru here that we're building from scratch. And we've also got the very first Triumph where they built the transmission into the engine. Within 6 months of having the shop, I had a 1.5-year waiting list. And I've stopped taking in projects in order to finish up some of the ones I've had for too long. Kind of happened quick. So this Yamaha RD 350 that I'm building at the moment is the same bike that my father used to race back in the 70s in Florida, which I've already built one version of before. When I first started riding motorcycles, it started on the gas tank of my dad's bike, and I was only 2 years old. I couldn't really hold my head up, so he taped a piece of foam to the back of my helmet so I wouldn't repeatedly hit him in the chest. That's the one thing I haven't had for myself at all. And I think he infused a lot of adrenaline into me. I feel like I gained a very real appreciation for the motor and the feelings they can instill into you. I never would have imagined that I would have had my own shop here doing this type of work. It kind of just transitioned into it. So I had one customer in particular, has a 1967 Ford Falcon, and his parents were immigrants from Eastern Europe. That particular 67 Falcon was the first car the family could afford to buy new, and he rode in the back of it all the way up until he started driving. He had the car through high school and college. The car sat for 10 years in West Texas. He was talking about it with a buddy one day and showed up unannounced to pick up the car, and it was buried waist deep in mud. He dug it out, brought the car over here with a donor car, and we essentially cut the two cars apart and made one car out of the two. We painted it, put the car back together. When he saw that car for the first time, it brought tears to his eyes when he explained the whole story behind it, how his parents acquired it and how long he'd had it. Like, the amount of love that he has that car, I don't know if anything else can top that, really. When I know a customer's had a vehicle for 40 years of their life, the amount of love they have for it is deep. We try to put the same amount of love into finishing that vehicle and making it what it should be. safety is at the highest of our priority list of everything that we do here at the shop. So going into our builds, we always sit down with a customer, consult with them, talk about their priority list, what they're trying to achieve with building a project. And from there, we generally don't draw everything out in Photoshop or CAD. We do a lot of hand fabrication here, and as we start a build process, we like to let one part affect the next part. And so if I feel that if you draw everything out and try to make it to the drawing, it can be very restricting. So we like to let the piece evolve itself, and I feel like it comes out more cohesive that way. So when we first started this shop up, I had to work at several other shops during the day, and I was working at this shop during the nights, and that went on for a few months. But being that there wasn't really any shops building motorcycles to a high level of finish, the work came relatively quickly. Between the 1957 Triumph and the 2006 Ducati, I probably have 1,200 hours labor to finish those two projects. Pretty much everything we build here, we try to finish at the highest level of finish. Going into a lot of projects, they take incredible amounts of hours, hundreds and sometimes thousands of hours, and then that transitioned into go-kart racing between 13 and 18 years old. And I was doing a lot of my own wrenching on the go-karts and setting up the chassis and suspension and all that work. And then I went to Nashville Auto Diesel College at 18 years old and got a formal education in this work. And I left there knowing that I wouldn't be happy working at a dealership, so I started doing more custom work, a lot of fabrication work. And then that led to an opportunity to build show cars for Mercedes-Benz at their factory in Alabama. And I prepped a lot of cars for the LA, Detroit, Shanghai, and Geneva Auto Show. And from there, I moved back to Houston and opened up the studio. So I think when a lot of our customers come into the shop, they see the work that we've done and that we've been very careful and very meticulous with everything we do. So when they see that type of attention, it puts the customer at ease and it makes them easy to drop their vehicle with us. So one of the pieces we're working on is a 1957 Triumph, and it has a bathtub bodywork on it. It's a very rare bike. It's the first bike that Triumph built where they integrated the transmission into the motor itself. And it came in very rough shape. The bathtub was all beat up, and we probably spent roughly 100 hours straightening it, TIG brazing, patch panels, and then running it through the English wheel and performing the paintwork on it. At the end of the day, we'll have close to 1,200 hours of labor into the bike. And the plan for the 1957 Triumph is to bring it to Amelia Island and Pebble Beach concourse event. Another bike that we have here is a 2006 Ducati 1000 Super Sport. We have largely refabricated the bike from scratch. We built a carbon fiber gas tank for the bike as to our own design, which we started by shaping a big chunk of Flores foam, and then we pulled a buck off of that. And then from the buck, we formed a mold. We also fabricated a custom exhaust system for it, which was roughly 60 hours of labor. The exhaust system is made out of stainless steel. We used a computer program to find the optimal tubing diameter for the exhaust and the optimal merging points, which was 19 inches for the front cylinder and then 37 inches for the second cylinder. And then it also gave us the optimal tubing diameter once we merged the exhaust together. All the paint work for that Ducati is done in-house. We came up with the paint scheme ourselves. There's a lot of chromoly on the bike. All the fairing mounts was made from 4130 chromoly. And there's really not many pieces on the bike that haven't been refabricated. We like to merge the mechanical, the engineering, and the aesthetic sides of it. There's a lot of shops that are good at hitting on one side of it. They're very good on the aesthetics, but they don't necessarily understand the engineering and the safety side of things. And I think that's very important. We chose this spot in the Heights because it's very central to everyone in Houston, and it's also a very safe area. I don't have to worry about break-ins here, which is a big, important part. There's others that do it that way also, but there's also a lot of people that like to draw it out and they get stuck on making it look exactly like the drawing. I feel like a lot of times if you're trying to build something as a drawing, it doesn't necessarily translate in person the same way it does on a computer screen. So we like to just do it as to our eye. So we have a lot of plans for the future. We're always looking to do bigger and better. One of the plans we have is to build a 1963 Maserati from scratch. We plan on taking a motor from a 2004 car, which has roughly 400 horsepower, using the front and rear suspension from that Maserati, and essentially build the chassis from scratch, and then we would build an aluminum body for that car, essentially the way they would do it in England or Italy in that time period, beating it into a stump, running it through the English wheel, and hammering it straight. One of our favorite projects at the moment is a carbon fiber Subaru. We cut the roof off the car, bonded on a carbon fiber roof. We also built a roll cage from scratch for the car. We essentially cut off the rear half of the car and bonded on carbon fiber quarter panels, and is going to be a showstopper. The 67 Falcon that we built was an extremely time-consuming car, being that we cut essentially the whole car apart and welded it back together. We probably had 1,500 hours of labor in doing the metal work and the paint work on that car. Yeah, so all of our work is done on a time plus material basis at $125 an hour. And with that, the hours add up quick, and depending on if you're doing a car or a motorcycle, you could spend between $30,000 and $300,000. Yeah. A lot of our customers come here to get something that's unique and one-off. They want something that no one else has, and you can't go to a dealership and buy that. So we've had a lot of customers come in through Instagram and Facebook. A lot of people watch what we do on there, and they can watch the stories and get an idea of the type of work, the type of time it takes. And a lot of people following us on Instagram and Facebook end up walking in the door.
I do have one. Go for it. I know you were talking about, you used to be diesel mechanic and all that. Mm-hmm. Your gear now, I mean, you got Snap-on stuff, talk to me about if you were strapped for cash and then, buying Harbor Freight tools, then breaking and now where you are now. Go through a little bit about that.
Talking about like owing the Snap-on guy 15 grand and I don't owe him 15 grand anymore. I've paid it off. There's Harbor Freight tools in here, like the English wheel, and then I had to spend 40 hours remaking the tool to get it to actually work.
But how long?
Yeah, so opening up the shop, when we opened up the shop, we had roughly 2 plastic tables and 1 toolbox in here. And over the first 3 or 4 years, we reinvested every single penny back into the business to buy the tooling to do this to the highest level of finish we can. To be honest with you, going into it, I mean, I have done a lot of the work, and I helped run another shop in Bel Air that had 28,000 square feet and 30 each car jobs going at a time. And I had no idea the amount of hours that go into this stuff. And I would quote a guy like $5 grand to build a bike, and then I would be 300-400 hours into it, and I'm making $10 an hour. And the only thing you can do is just work more hours to get the thing done to pay the rent. But we started producing a lot of our own carbon fiber pieces here in-house, because there's a lot of things where we see a shape or a design and you simply can't buy it off the shelf. So the only other option is to make it from scratch. We also make a lot of stuff out of aluminum from scratch, where we beat it into the stump, into a sandbag, and then run it through the English wheel, and then spend a lot of time with a hammer and dolly. We invest in the best tools we can buy so we can create the best finished piece. So since we had a formal training in engines, I've been building them since I was 18 years old. When I was 19 years old, I poured and polished a head and built the motor in the world's fastest 4-cylinder Audi. And from there, it's just been a progression. There's a lot of, when we start rebuilding older motors, there's times where you can't buy pieces for them, so we have to make from scratch. We use a lathe and a mill often to make bushings, to take up tolerances that are too loose.